Hello, I'm Tom Baker from Steering Wheel Nation, and this is a Steering Wheel Spotlight. This afternoon, we are joined by UK modified racer Finn Robinson. Finn is a young driver, 20 years old, who is trying to build his motorsports resume, and his ultimate goal is to come to the U.S. and become the first full-time UK NASCAR Cup Series racer in history. And we are working with Finn and trying to help him in his quest to come over here and get some racing action in either later this season or in 2025. Finn currently is just off his first week of UK modified racing, where he finished second, and fourth in his three events, and is really excited about the opportunity to actually achieve what he came oh so close to last year in his rookie year in the UK modified division, which is to win the national championship. Finn, it is great to have you on the program, and I guess we should start with the fact that the UK modified car that you're racing is basically an import. It's virtually a mod light car from the US that you guys are running over there. But a couple of little wrinkles that you guys do with those cars that we don't do, and that's where I want to start. First of all, you made the adjustment from a car called the Running Rebel car, which is basically, it's hard to explain. It looks a little like a Legends car, but it has a rub rail all the way around it. It's a very high contact sport over there, to the UK modified, which is definitely not a high contact sport, or it's not supposed to be anyway. Talk a little bit about the UK modified, first of all, how you've adjusted to it, and tell us what's different about UK modified racing versus the American form of that, which is the Mod Light division.
Yeah, so coming from the Rebels, it was certainly a big jump up to the UK modifieds. The speed difference is definitely the big one there, of going from, you're talking 79 horsepower up to anywhere between about 150 to 200 on the bike motors there. I mean, they're great blast, absolutely brilliant blast. I remember my first testing it, jumping in it and thinking, hey, what's the worst that can happen if we just mash this thing to the floor? And well, yeah, I certainly got an experience, that was for sure. Obviously in the UK, we actually race on asphalt and dirt with them. So we do tarmac racing with them as well. So cold slicks and a nice torquey bike engine, that was certainly in for a fun ride.
I bet.
So I think the big difference for me was definitely the speed.
Give us some detail about the first time you hit the floor with the car, and really the first time you got in it, because I remember you and I talking in our weekly meetings that we have, and you were just absolutely over the moon to finally get into a car with enough horsepower to actually scare you a little bit.
Yeah, well, the ironic thing was I was sat there. We rented out a track for the day, and we basically just done a whole day of testing with it, just getting used to the car, how it acts, how different adjustments make things work. And I remember saying just before I got, I'm just going to take the first session just nice and easy, really easy. I got to about the third lap of just tootling along, and I thought, well, what really is the worst that's going to happen if I just plant this thing to the floor? If I just let that right foot dig, what's going to happen? And I remember the first time I did it, it picked up, and I was caught so off guard that I actually ended up looking at the roof of the car. It shot my head back, and I was kind of going like this down the straight, and I was like, oh wow, okay. So it has definitely a lot of torque, but ran some solid laps that day, learned a lot, and I think that reflects for sure.
I was surprised at the fact that you run them on both surfaces over there. Here, the Mod Light cars are basically a dirt car. It's the origin of that is dwarf car racing, and it's a dirt track sport. Here, we don't run them on pavement. What are those cars like on pavement? I could imagine that you would get those things moving pretty quickly with the torque, even though there's not obviously the horsepower of, say, a late model. I would think those things would be pretty fast on pavement and fun to drive.
Oh, for sure. They are the quickest things on the UK oval on tarmac themselves. You know, obviously we will make some adjustments from what you guys would have your car set up as to for dirt. Obviously, different shock absorbers, different settings, things like that. And the main thing being tires. We do run slick tires on asphalt. So as soon as you get a good little bit of temperature into them, they tend to be just glued to the ground, which is absolutely great. Makes for some great racing. Um, yeah, I think the side forces that come with that is insane. But that just makes it even more fun taking it to the high side, and being pinned up against the right hand side of the seat and trying to pull yourself back. And yeah, it's a big difference between dirt and asphalt. But I certainly enjoy racing on asphalt just as much as I do the dirt.
Now, talk a little bit about what was your original interest in racing? How old were you when you first sort of discovered motorsports, and what was your sort of on ramp into? Was it watching NASCAR or IndyCar or F1, or what was your original first time how did you get interested in the sport in the first place?
Well, actually I must have been about 6. I'd say roughly, and my dad had very nicely given me a little 50cc quad bike to just have a little bit of fun on. And I ended up making little courses and things like that. Set out some cones to weave in and out of and stuff like that. And then it sort of got to a point where it was like, well, how quickly can I do the course? And then we'd start pushing harder and pushing harder, and then that's where I kind of found like the need for speed, if you will. Always trying to find out where I can gain that little bit extra, and from there that basically then branched into my dad taking me go-karting, racing in go-karts every weekend. And he himself was actually an oval racer over here in the UK as well. So that then just naturally stemmed from go-karting with the basics and the fundamentals to then progressing into the UK short ovals racing scene.
So, you're about the most American Brit I've ever met. And for those watching this, when Finn and I first started working together here and doing the Zoom calls, in his background on the call was a Route 66 sign. I mean, he's about as American as it gets. Where does that come from, Finn? I mean, is it just sort of the whole NASCAR roots thing for you, or what is the, you just seem to prefer stock car racing and NASCAR racing over other forms of racing that are probably more popular over there in Europe than they are here.
Yeah, I mean, I also give full credit to my dad on that one as well. So what on February, I forget the year. I think we'd probably be looking about the 2015, 2016 mark, roughly.
Okay.
He took me to my first Daytona 500.
There you go.
My first time abroad to America on a racing trip, as you will. And from there, that was it. I was just like a fish on the end of the line. Like I was hooked. Like the sound, the noise, the atmosphere, it had me reeled in. Like I was hooked from day one.
You've been to watch F1 races, and you also have a lot of time in as a mechanic on race cars, and yet NASCAR is sort of the thing for you. So I think a lot of folks watching this would be curious as to why NASCAR over F1. What is the appeal for you to the stock car side of things over F1? You've been to both, so I know it isn't just being biased by the experience of being a fan at a 500.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I say, the noise for me, I'm a sucker for a V8. Just a V8 noise, you'll have me turning my head like an owl. I love them. So I think that is really the main catch. But then going over there and seeing the things like the Super Late models around the Smyrna, and seeing the grassroots and the journey up, it's just a lot more interesting. It's a lot more in depth, and you have to work what I would say a lot harder for your positions, your seats. Obviously that time in and out of the season to actually progress up the ladder is just something that's nothing like over here in Europe. It's just incredible.
So, first of all, you just won over the entire American fan base with the comment about the V8s, because I think we're all wanting not to see the V8s go away, and I'm real proud of my friends at Ford for having the steadfastness to stay with a brand new Mustang when Chevy and Chrysler are basically going away from the V8 muscle car market. The Mustang is about the only thing left, honestly, and which I think is cool. But tell me a little bit about what your hope is, what your journey is. I know you want to come over here and race NASCAR. What does that mean for you being in the UK? What do you foresee as some of the challenges you have that obviously somebody who's here in America wouldn't?
I mean, the two biggest things are, well, the main one is definitely going to be travel. Obviously, for some people, it can be just a 5-minute truck journey down the road to head to the local track. If I was heading to over to the States, we're looking at roughly a 9-hour air rides there, and that's going to somewhere, landing in at somewhere like Orlando and then driving up to somewhere like Daytona, New Smyrna. So that's just the East Coast. So as you head further inland and over to the West Coast, now obviously them journeys get a lot more expensive. They get a lot more time consuming, which definitely makes it a little bit more difficult for us. But the main one being visas. Obviously, as a non-US resident, to try and get over there full time and get to experience everything, the life, the journey, makes it a lot harder with the visa application processes. So that is another huge step that's in the way for us.
You've actually been over here a couple times helping out a sprint car, so it's not as if the stock car fan experience is the only piece of U.S. racing that you've had. What's your opinion of the sprint cars and the open wheel side of things here?
I love it just as much. Honestly, again, it's the same thing. The atmosphere, the roar of the V8, just sideways around the track. There's just nothing for me that will ever top something like that. Being stood up against the catch fence and it's there 1 minute and then all of a sudden it's exiting turn 2 just like that. Like, it is insane. And having the opportunity to be able to go out and work on something like that and work with a fellow UK driver who's doing a sort of similar thing, seeing him go out there and get to live that opportunity, I get to live that dream with him. It's almost like I'm a part of that. So it's something I'll never ever forget.
So what is that sort of V8 style of racing? Is that largely missing in the UK? What is racing like over there?
Racing is very much away from V8. There is not many V8 series. There is only 2 cars, two series, I should say, that actually run a V8 style of engine. One being a Chevy V8 small block and big block, and then you've also got something called V8 Hot Stocks, which run a Rover V8 engine. And other than that, that's all the V8s that are really used in the UK short oval side of things. I mean, if you were to branch into somewhere, like the circuit racing as such, obviously you have the Mercedes AMG that still runs a V8 in there and things like that. But V8s are not popular over here. The thing that I would say separates it the most is you can walk down the street over on your side of the pond and you can see 8 V8s go by and nobody bats an eyelid. If there is just one V8 that's driving down the road here, everybody will turn into an owl and break a neck to try and get a glimpse of it.
Wow.
So they are a rarity over here, which is, I think, kind of what ignites me a little bit more, is that it's so much harder to try and find something like that and racing like that. The racing style over here is a lot different. You tend to see a lot of sort of 4-cylinder engines. Is tend to be the route that a lot of people go down. They'll range quite drastically between what they do run. Like I say, we even run bike motors, so you will have actual car motors, bike motors. You'll get a bit of everything included over here, but V8s are definitely a rarity.
So what is the perception then? Is that an environmental concern thing as to why V8s have gone away over there, or is it availability? What do you think is behind this sort of lack of the V8 style over there?
I couldn't even tell you. It is just they never seem to exist here. Obviously, if you were to go back in the history books and look back, you see loads of Call of Old style V8s over on your side, but over here, there's just never ever been anything like that. It's just never been a thing at all.
Okay.
So I think that's where it largely stems from. It's never something that's really been mass produced as such, and doesn't seem to be in the soon making to be either. So it's just something that's never really picked up over here, which is a shame.
So the circle track racing that you do over there, you've told me in the past that that's circle track oval racing in the UK is really not, by and large, nearly as popular with the fans as sort of the circuit racing or road course style of racing in the various, obviously, divisions that do that sort of thing. Why is that, do you think? Is it just de-emphasized, or is there a lack of as many oval tracks over there as what we would have here?
We definitely won't have as many tracks as you guys over there, unfortunately. We do certainly still have a good selection still, which is great. We're all fighting to keep them alive and keep obviously our sport, our passions, our hobbies all going. But it's just not something that's widely familiarized, widely televised. You can turn on the TV on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can find your NASCAR, you can find your Formula One. It's there. It's easy pickings, if you will. To find our tracks, to find our series, you really have to dig deep or know somebody that was already been into it. It's almost like the hidden gem over here, and that's what we're trying to do, is just throw that hidden gem out onto the street and let people see, that we have a cool side too. And welcome to UK Short Oval Racing. Come on down and come and have a watch. And I think that's where it goes missing, is it's just not quite widely pushed as something like Formula One.
So you've got the background in working on cars, and you've got the education to do that. So you're well schooled in how cars work in general. And of course, you and your dad do the bulk of the work on your own car. That obviously would be an advantage for you coming over here trying to race in a stock car or whatever, because you've already got that experience of being able to give feedback based on not just what you feel in the seat, but also understanding how the car works from your background, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was very fortunate to be brought up with it from a young age. As I say, my dad racing before, I've naturally been brought up around cars and spanners and things like that. So I naturally picked it up, getting a fortunate opportunity to go down to somewhere like Silverstone F1 circuit and be based at a college there for 2 years, learning the ins and outs of different vehicles, being able to stem out into some GT racing with the Ferraris, with AF Course, into endurance racing with 360 Racing. We've definitely had the opportunity work on some pretty cool cars for what I would say at myself is quite a young age. So I'm definitely grateful for that, and it definitely life changing how you perceive things and how you work forward, especially when you have your own car. You can pick up little nitbits and tricks and things like that just to bring forward and put onto your own car and experiment with. So it's definitely interesting.
You got a over half a dozen feature wins last year, and probably at least a dozen race wins in your first year in the UK Modified. We talked a little bit about them being a two-surface car. I think you won on both pavement and dirt, if I can remember from last year. But you've won on both surfaces in your career. So which do you like better? You like asphalt or do you like dirt?
Well, that is one that I still haven't fully decided yet. I think they both have their pros and cons. On a nice, warm, sticky day, there's nothing better than being on asphalt, I think. Having to temperature control your tires, it brings a sort of unique aspect into it. You have to be careful not to push too hard, burn up the right front, burn up the right rear, and then you have issues there. But then as you sort of head into the winter seasons, if you can get a dry sort of winter where there's not much rain or snow or anything like that, you're probably heading towards the dirt way. But obviously any spit of rain and things like that, we still race through rain over here. So unfortunately, we then have to endure a nice bit of muddy mess, which can make it quite difficult sometimes.
I was going to get to that.
It really depends on weather conditions and seasons, I think.
I was going to get to that. How in the wide world of sports do you guys race in the kind of downpours on both surfaces that I've seen from your videos and from obviously our time together over the last year or so, just in meetings? How in the wide world of sports do you guys do that with those cars? What's that like to race short track oval in the rain? And don't make it sound too positive, because I don't want to give anybody over here any ideas.
in a nutshell, a handful. Trying to get the power down, around a short oval track with the amount of torque and power that you've got under the hood of something like a UK modified is certainly a science. You get a nice bit of understeer on the way in, and then you're oversteering all the way out. It's certainly a unique experience. If you can get it just right, it's an absolute masterclass. It's awesome to drive, but it's a very fine line between success and failure with racing in the rain, which can cause obviously dreaded accidents, damages, crashes, things like that, which is obviously not what any racer wants. But when you get it good, when you get it hooked up and you've got the settings just right, it's amazing.
Okay, so if you could have a conversation with a car owner here in the States and have some input into what level of the sport that you would come into over here as your sort of your first step on your journey, would it be a late model, an ARCA car, or a truck, or where do you think your current skill set probably lines you up best, and why?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I would be looking towards like a pro late model, something like that. Maybe not jumping straight into a super. I think we may be pushing the boat out just a little bit there. Obviously, your guys' style of racing is quite a little bit different to ours over here, so we will still have to almost rebuild them fundamentals. It's almost like reprogramming yourself in a way. So I think jumping into something like a pro where you've got the power but not too much power is probably going to be the right way to go, and we can build up from there. So that would definitely be step one, I think.
And how would you explain your driving style? How would you describe that?
Well, as in my personal driving
Yeah,
style or UK in general?
your personal driving style on the racetrack.
Aggressive. Definitely more of an aggressive driver. If I can find that limit, I'll hit it every lap without a doubt. I will push and push and push. Obviously, unfortunately, that does occasionally come round and hurt us if sometimes we push a little bit too hard or make a slight mistake. There's not a lot of margin for errors. But there is nothing better than just feeling going into a corner, knowing that you're right on the ragged edge. There's a good saying that loose is fast, and that's certainly what we aim for.
Okay, so I know that you can't do all of the racing stuff by yourself. So before we let you get out of here, first let's talk about sponsors, thank yous, anybody you'd like to acknowledge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the big two ones in our career at the moment is obviously my dad and his business, Shepton Crane Hire. They do really well at looking after me. The painful weeks in the workshop of endless work, blood, sweat, tears, and then just get it on the weekends and doing it all over again and, bring it back into the shop on Monday. It's never ending. So the commitment and dedication it takes from us all over here, I could really thank them for that. That's absolutely great. And also the guys over at Harrison Motorsport, Murray and Ryan Harrison, always on call, always hand in hand for advice and tips on how to improve myself as a driver, how to improve the car, and really where we can learn, as we are still very much in a learning stage, I feel.
Well, look forward to seeing where your career takes you here. And of course, we're just getting started with you and hoping that your opportunity to come here and race comes soon. In the meantime, if some of our fans would like to follow you and what you're doing over there in the UK, talk about your social channels and where they can hook up.
Yep. So the two best ones to head over to will be Finn Robinson Racing on YouTube. So the tracks that we are allowed to post any sort of onboard footage on, I will do sort of a mini vlog style, and we'll get some good onboard footage on a helmet cam that's literally just mounted to my chin there, so you see it exactly how I see it. That's probably the best place to head. And then you've also got my Instagram, which is Finn_.28, and that's where you'll see all the live updates, results, things like that. That'll be your best place to keep an eye on where we're racing at next.
It's been fun to talk with you a little bit today, Finn, and look forward to following up as your season carries on. I know you've got another race coming up here in a couple of weeks. You got a new car that you're preparing to hit the dirt tracks with over there that will give you two cars, one for pavement, one for dirt. So you're a busy guy, and we want to let you get back to it, but we appreciate the time to kind of get you into the spotlight here on Steering Wheel Nation and talk a little bit. And good luck the rest of the season.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That is Finn Robinson, and this has been another Steering Wheel Nation Spotlight. This spotlight's been brought to you by TrackTune. If you are a racetrack owner or a series owner and you would like to improve your fan experience at your event, you can do so with TrackTune. TrackTune is an app that allows you to hear the announcers right through your phone. It works through the Racetrack's PA system and connects to any internet-capable device, and it then sends the signal out for the PA system so that it can come back through the app. It is free for fans to dial up your TrackTune broadcast from your track, and you are charged minimally. It is very sponsorable. It's a great way to enhance the fan experience and also better keep the teams in the pit area informed about what's going on and when they're supposed to be on the grid, etc. Track2.live is where to go to get all the information, or check them out on Facebook. Until our next Steering Wheel Nation Spotlight, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching.